brought it up,
replacement
you
stand.
sent us something right after it happened, right?
Well, I've said to
Yeah,
them
yeah.
that, you know, a couple agencies, we're all in and out,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So there's
And
not
how
a
many
whole
were
lot of
transport
turnover.
and how many were-
Yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta
Okay,
check these
so if it
contracts,
gets brought
and
up
most of them
tonight,
come back and say
we're gonna
retired.
work on the contract.
Yours hasn't said that, but I
Yep.
hope checked it
Well,
out, so I
I've
say,
left.
okay, I know it's going
Are you
on.
gonna put that, are you gonna put that in your ad?
Yeah, that
then?
should,
Yes, I
yeah,
know.
that's
You're
unfortunate.
not-
I would
Yeah,
go
so
in and
you're-
repair
I think that's
No, my head still is.
And you should, because that's.
I've read
what
it
else
all.
here.
Yeah, but I know, you never would care, it's nothing,
Well,
that would have, you know,
This is gonna drag
we
me
have to
nuts.
write a long call.
Yeah, this committee,
Yeah.
I guess the house session
Okay.
so much, but
I
committee
already
I
by
just.
7:05.
There's a lot for $5.
Yeah, you're asking a lot.
You go there a lot.
I have the best story time for grandkids. Right, Mary? Mary, you have the best story time in the whole valley. You do. That's
She's
why I
looking
hang out of your library,
She's
not
looking
mine.
at
I didn't see it, I'm sorry.
attachment to the prep emails.
Remember Elsie's
That's-
last
we
name?
usually get that ahead of time.
Just make one up.
How we doing? 2 minutes.
2 months, I'm gonna fix the clock. Only been 6 months. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. All right, you ready to go?
Are you expecting him, right?
I'm expecting him. Haven't heard anything
He's gonna come
else.
smoking around that corner.
I know. Wow.
Okay.
There's the bell. At 6 o'clock on Tuesday, May 27th, I'll call the Tamworth Select Board meeting to order. There is one change to the agenda. We have a timber tax for map 203, lot 27. That wasn't the original. Is there any important public input before we get into it? Yes, Susan? Oh, Susan beat you. Wait, first we'll go with Susan and then we'll get to you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to follow up on the conversation we had a few weeks ago about putting Narcan into first aid kits. I believe we were going to check and see how many first aid kits we had and where they were located. So I just wanted to check and see if we had that information yet, and also if there's any next steps that we need to be taken care of.
Sure. So I did speak with Rick Moreau, who's our buildings and grounds manager, and we don't have
Yeah.
public first aid kits at all of the buildings. So it's something he's going to look into. We talked about having them in all the spots that we also have the AEDs, but I did take the liberty too to reach out to TCNA to
Yeah.
see if this can be kind of joint efforts on this project. So. Which they're open to, and they have some good information too, so.
And I just want to follow up on that because I also talked to Julie Lenoy from TCNA, and so, you know, as things tend to be, they're often larger than what we think is a simple little fix. So, you know, Julie had some really important questions about having the town provide first aid kits and where they would be provided and how they'd be maintained. And it's a similar kind of question that we have about the AEDs that are around town that were originally grant funded. So, you know, a kit is only useful if it's updated and things aren't expired and you need a Band-Aid and the Band-Aid's in it and you need it and the door to the building isn't locked. So we're looking at all of that right now. So it's not as simple as saying, yep, we're going to stick some Narcan in kits because we don't have kits and we don't know where they are, who's going to maintain them, or what the access is. But that is all kind of in process right now.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And if I might just make a suggestion or a hope that before we get the whole system worked out, if we just identify even one first aid kit that is accessible and we could slip a little tiny box of Narcan in, and start there, I would be happy with that start. So I understand it's complicated. Thank you.
I
Thank you,
wasn't
Susan.
here for the conversation, but apologize if this has already been discussed, but isn't there training required to administer Narcan? There's not.
What?
There's not, but we did get an offer of citizen training from the Carroll County Coalition for Health,
Okay.
Catalina Kirsch, for anybody on any town committee or board who wanted it.
Awesome.
And may I add a little to that? The training that I received, and my understanding is pretty standard, takes about 10 or 15 minutes, and you can even watch a video, and the instructions are right on the little box right there.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you.
All right, Maureen, did you have something?
Hi there. Yes, please. I just wanted to report on an experience that a client at the community center had with TriCap Transportation, since you had Scott Boybert as a guest at the May 6th meeting. And I asked him about the option of transport by TriCap for clients of the food pantry who need help. And he said that would not be a problem. They just needed to call 24 hours in advance, and they could even set up recurrent appointments. Well, our client did call for a pantry that was on May 21st. I'm not positive if she called the 19th or the 20th, but she did call, and she was told she could not get a ride on the 21st, nor could they set up a recurrent ride for her for subsequent pantries. And I just wanted to go on the record and share that with you. I have an obligation, I think, to talk to Scott and follow up on the interaction with our client, which I haven't done yet, and I will do that. But I just think it's an important service, and it would be very helpful if it could be available for our clients. Thank you very much.
Maureen, this is Leanne. If you need any other support with that and talking to Scott, feel free to reach out to me.
Great, thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay. Under new business, department head update with Brian.
Good time.
Just in time. What's up, Brian?
Nothing. Everything's going well. Construction's underway. I would like to see about inspecting bags. Seems to be a lot of people kind of sneaking stuff into the compactor, which probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
I think I just have to get your clearance to do it. Once it leaves their car, it's no longer their property, but just get your thoughts on that.
So how would you do it? Would it still be their property when you're inspecting, or have we taken?
No, once
possession?
it leaves their car, it's no longer their property. So it's just a hamper. I don't want to like penalize the whole town. It's the same people every time. So and probably won't have to do it more than once. You know?
What, theoretically, what kind of things do you think might be in there that shouldn't be in there?
Oh no, I know exactly what's in there. Sheetrock, shingles, paint, hazardous waste.
Anything they can put in a black bag.
Yeah, anything that can go on a black bag that they'd have to pay for. And again, I want to emphasize, it's a very small number of people. It's the same people every time.
So you've got some very heavy bags, is my guess.
Yeah.
Wonder how many of them are mine.
They get tossed in,
Six.
and you get a cloud of sheetrock that's coming out.
Are there repercussions? I mean, are there?
Well, I know that other areas there's a warning, a fine, and then they're banned for a period of time.
Okay.
Which I wouldn't mind, knowing what the protocol for that is as well. Cause
Right, we'd have to develop.
Yeah.
We have to develop a policy.
There seems to be the same group tend to be unflattering when talking to the other two guys, Stephen and Ernesto. I don't tend to run into that problem, but I've seen it happen. So, we understand that everybody has a bad day, but
Every time you come,
yeah, and and it's usually when they're getting caught doing something they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
They tend to, fly off the deep end.
And one thing we really need to look closely at is what it says on our website in writing that can or cannot go in the MSW. If you have a small amount of sheetrock or plaster, can it go in a trash bag, or can none of it and it has to go in the
Has to
C&D?
go. Has to go.
So we need to make sure that's clear in our policy before we tell somebody, hey, you can't do that.
Would it be helpful to have signage that says what can't go, like right above where you're tossing the stuff in?
I don't think signage would hurt, but I also don't think that they're.
For this
I don't
person,
think
it's gonna
they're
matter.
Yeah, I think they know, they know how many shingles they can put in a bag before the bag rips.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
A few repeat offenders and pretty.
Absolutely. Same people every time.
I don't have a problem at all with you doing your job the way you think you need to, and if like a kind of standard protocol is that the first conversation is a warning, and you are confident that this is a kind of repeat thing with this person, I'm comfortable with you taking that person aside in a non-confrontational way and just saying,
Well, we do every once in a while, we talk to them, but,
so you have already had these conversations?
oh, yeah.
You have to,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to. They tend to get loud and
Well,
creative with the language.
Really?
I mean, if the next step is to ban,
I don't mean ban, but
Yeah.
just maybe, it's sad that as adults we have to give each other timeouts, but that's basically what it would be.
Yeah.
because we only charge $5 a black bag. If you're throwing construction waste away, a big black bag,
Yeah.
$5.
Yeah,
And anybody will tell you that if they don't have it on them, I say, get me next time. We're not,
Right.
Right.
we're not crazy up there.
Brian and I can work on it, but I think we would need to like update the policy
right,
guidelines.
make sure
like,
that's clear.
And have you
Yeah.
guys adopt it, like,
Yeah.
but,
So can you work on that and bring it to us for a vote when it's tidied up? Yeah?
Absolutely.
And also maybe reach out to our attorney just to find out how far can we go if we have to go that far. It may be just to make sure we have the authority to, ban somebody from the transfer station.
Brian, I think you
I'm
said
all
you
for it,
talked
we
to the
just need to
state
make
already.
sure we know how to.
Yeah, no, I talked with the state already, and they.
Okay, good.
Technically, I already have the right to go through this stuff. I just thought
Yeah.
it would be better to bring it to your
Yeah.
attention.
I think it's a great idea. And I would take, whenever you do it, every single time, take pictures or a video,
Absolutely.
every single time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
aside from that, how's it
Sorry you're
going?
dealing with that.
Yeah. No, I mean, everything's great, it's.
Construction's going
No,
ahead.
it's going, it's going. I would like to start charging for brush. I think it's getting carried away as far as again, we charge people for sheetrock, there's no reason. And for the most part, the demo doesn't cost this taxpayers anymore, but every time we do brush, it costs the taxpayers, because one of us or both of us have to go over, we're beating up the machines. So it's really just a matter of being fair, I think.
And I think we need a public hearing to change the fees.
Yeah.
I think so. So we should schedule a public hearing, because I agree, if we take brush at all, we should charge for it.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure we should take it, but,
Yeah, well, you had had an idea about stacking it down below, and I think that's probably
yeah,
not a bad idea, just
yeah.
let it get big enough and then go
And
spend
then-
a couple hours doing it.
And I'll take as a to-do to chat with the fire chief as well about, do we have options to burn it? Because I know some towns do.
Most do, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if we have the space for it, but if, I'm open to whatever makes sense.
Yeah, I think we've always had the space, it was a matter of running water. We need water.
That makes sense. Well, the way they do it in Mullinborough is, they call the fire chief, the fire department comes, the transfer station staff burns it, and the
Yeah.
fire truck is there, so.
Okay. In Freedom, they just burn it.
Yeah.
There's no need.
Well, they've got a pit,
Yeah. Oh, we got plenty of space, so.
Right.
And that's pretty much it for me. Except, the food drive's going really well. We're gonna try to do something before summer,
Oh, yeah.
just to make it a little bit bigger.
Good.
How's the new compactor working out?
Fantastic, fantastic. It is, once people get used to the traffic pattern or the change, it's already saving time, which inevitably saves money.
So is Waste Management changing out the containers?
The change of, yes, both
Good.
now. So, and it's working out perfectly.
Other than we need containers that don't leak right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We are,
So that's a rental we have
talked
now.
about
Yes.
renting or buying.
well, there are 2 rentals and 3 we own, but the 3 we own, I have a guy coming tomorrow to try to patch. I emailed Emily today about a couple of things that we definitely need. And containers are definitely on the list.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at some point, maybe Richard, me, you, and Brian should sit down, because while, like, I'm heading up the capital CIP portion of it, there's some equipment that I know we'd possibly use the grant for,
Yeah.
that are more urgent. Some things are like, we can plan 5 years out, some
Yeah.
you might need, so just kind of organize our to-do list
Yeah.
for equipment.
If it's regular operations, we should have Steve in the conversations.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the patchwork he's doing tomorrow will buy us some time, so, but they are, they've been bad long before I
We
should.
don't want them leaking right there, do we?
Yeah.
No, but it's not ideal.
Yeah.
It just adds a little bit of cleanup in the mornings.
Yeah.
That's about it, though. But overall, everything's going great, and again, I don't wanna, sound like I'm anti. 98% of the people who come in there are fantastic and are having pleasant experiences. It's just a couple of bad apples as it is in life. So.
Before we're done with Brian, I'm just gonna make an announcement that Brian, on June 23rd, is gonna be given a award from the Lakes Region Planning Commission, which represents 27 towns in the Lakes Region. So he's gonna be honored. I'm not giving any more details because it's supposed to be a surprise, but we do want you, while you're here, because you're not gonna be back here before us for months, to recognize, even though you don't know what you've done that's great, you do great things. And,
It's just overall greatness.
Yeah, he's right.
Just a nice guy.
And,
Great.
and so Brian's getting one of 5 awards given out of 27 towns, so it's a good
That's
deal.
great.
Oh,
Thank
nice.
you.
Yeah. So thank you for all you do.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know what it's for yet. Might not be.
There's no pay raise with it.
I forget.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
All right.
One thing I wanted to mention that I was going to talk about in my Selectmen's update, but you probably won't be here, is Cobalt and HEB and I were there for the slab test pit to see if there's a foundation under the slab, and I just can't remember if I've spoken to you since then. There is no foundation under the slab, which is no big surprise to anybody. And we'll have to decide what to do with it, but that's not happening right now.
Question about that, if you're talking about replacing that slab, would it maybe make sense to put a new slab wherever, like, maybe there's a better positioning for your building, for the
Yep.
recycling building or such? Instead of, it's already tight there,
Yep.
so it would seem as though
Yeah,
it might not be a bad idea, because I know that you guys are excited about the building, it would be better to have it somewhere maybe else.
Yeah, the two places are where the slab is or where the brush pile is.
Perfect.
And I was leaning towards, we'll just start where the brush pile is because it's fresh dirt, but then I realized, okay, if somebody's leaving, wants to put recyclables there, the glass is still over here, and they'd have to stop twice for
Well,
recycling.
why wouldn't you put everything on that right-hand side over where the brush is? Glass, bottles,
Yeah,
cans.
you could, as you
We
come around the
we could
corner.
move the glass
Yeah,
container.
you can move it all, if you want.
Transport it with the mini skid.
Yeah. If there's room, we could move the glass container.
Absolutely.
Because I would agree, it's if you're digging something up or mucking with it, it makes sense to start in a fresh site.
Well, I would just want you to, be able to go into it starting off in a better position,
Yeah.
as opposed to, it's already been a problem, it's a little tight area,
Yeah.
and might as well do the best you can.
And the other downside is the containers that would hold the baled material was going to go there. That would then go on the slab, and then only shorter containers fit on the slab. But so you have to truck them out a little sooner. You get 20-foot containers instead of 40-footers.
If you move the slab to a different location to where your building is going to be, the existing slab you could use to store. You could put, because it's still going to be there.
Oh yeah.
So you could use that for storage for whatever's baling
Yep.
or
Yep.
equipment, new skid steer, new tractor. My award.
Right.
Need a whole
You're
building.
gonna need a new lift for that.
That's what he's for.
Yeah.
All set?
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Brian.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys.
All right, now we move to Remick Acres Community Block Grant with Scott Milliken.
Good evening. I'm Scott Milliken. Thanks for having me. Good to see you all. I represent Housing Initiatives of New England Corporation. We are a nonprofit developer, owner, operator of affordable housing for seniors. And we have a property in Tamworth, Remick Acres. It's coming up on moderate need for a rehab, and we don't have the details on the rehab. The timing of that would be after we have a third party come in and do a capital needs assessment and have our architects and engineers on site to do drawings and plans. But it would be in the magnitude of a couple of $1 million to dress the place up. One of the items that we intend to, one of the goals we intend to accomplish is to make the 6 studio apartments into 1-bedroom apartments, because right now it's 24 units, 18 1-bedrooms, 6 studios. We would like to convert those so it's 24 1-bedrooms, but at the same time, it's getting a little tired, site and the units. So that's the rehab. So the reason that I'm here with my really good friend Donna Lane, a couple of you seem to know, is that we are requesting that the town apply for a community development block grant to assist in the funding of this project. And the way that these grants work is that it's either a town or a county that applies for the grant, and then in this case we're requesting it through the town, and the town would actually operate as a pass-through, receive the grant, and then pass the money through the project to us as a nonprofit developer. There are no costs to the town. There's some time involved, and I'll let Donna answer questions about that because she's been through it many times over the last 4 decades. I shouldn't have said 4 decades. Sorry about that.
In fact, one of the first ones was Bear Camp School.
Yeah.
That's 40-something years ago, right?
Yeah. And it's a little bit of time. It's a little bit of time, like we're getting some meetings, and there's some paperwork to draft. But we would handle, with Donna's help, all the paperwork that needs to be done. We would draft the housing community development plan for you to review. There's a public hearing that has to take place. There's a vote that has to occur after a public hearing, and so forth and so on. There's certain procedures that have to be followed, but that's our request to you.
That part's pretty straightforward. Can you talk, Donna, or maybe Scott, about the displacement and relocation certification part of the process? I've been involved in other community development grants that have not involved housing, so this is a new part to me. And the second paragraph, I know that we're the fiscal pass-through theoretically in this, but it's saying the town of Tamworth will comply with this relocation assistance, and we don't have any capacity to do that. So how does that work for you?
I can talk to you a little bit about how
Yeah.
we develop, and I think that's probably will answer your question. When we do a rehab, we keep our residents in place,
Okay.
and whatever it is. We recently did a substantial rehabilitation in Nashua of 101 units in a 5-story building, and we replaced all the bathrooms, kitchens, carpets, painted, baseboards, everything with the residents in place.
Great.
And we basically brought crews of 5 or 6 in, took the whole kitchen out, put it back in, in a deck, and then the next day come in and do the bathroom. It took about a week per unit. It took us 6 months, but we rolled them through, and so there's no real true displacement. If something were to occur, because you never know,
Right.
we would take care of that. We would take care of any kind of relocation. If someone needed to be put up short-term, let's say, a hotel or something extreme, which is not typical, we would definitely take care of that.
Okay.
So the anti-displacement and relocation plan is always a requirement, no matter what you're asking for CDBG for. It doesn't mean you could be doing a study and you have to adopt it every time. Basically, it's the government's protection of people that they aren't just displaced or relocated. And if we do move somebody, in this case, they're going to work around, there's no intent on moving anybody, but if we were going to do that, we would have to likely move them to a different unit on site and pay for all those costs. We have to follow these rules. The intent is not to do a whole lot in each unit, it's more on the exteriors and all the other stuff. There's some inside.
There will be, and we
but
don't have the extent of the rehab yet.
it's not huge, but, so the intent right now is to not displace anybody even for a day, just to do it for the day. They have a community room that they could go hang out, right?
They do have a small community room. And in addition to this, we actually have to have our own relocation plan for our financer, for our bank loan. So there are other requirements that we go through. That this is a very small portion of this project, the CDBG grant. We are also, I mean, this is going to be a tax exempt bond loan to low income housing tax credit. There'll be equity, this will be a syndication with an equity investor involved. So it's a rather large project. So there'll be a lot of eyes on it.
When might it happen?
Our projected timeline as of now, and it's definitely just a projection. It's a model, and I was in a meeting one time, and the gentleman said all models are wrong by design because they're models. But so we would look to get this application for the CDBG done by, I think it's July 28th, somewhere in July. We would try and close on our loan in February 2026, start construction in March 1st, finish with the rehab probably by November or December.
And other than expanding the studios into one bedroom, there's no addition of units? There's no
Not
expansion?
at this time, not at this time. We are mission driven, we don't chase the almighty dollar, although it's important to keep the buildings up and running. They have to pencil out and stay operational and sustainable. Our plan now is just rehab.
Is there room on site for more units?
We definitely have room on that site for more units. I know there probably would be some issues with the septic that we'd have to work out.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll be back.
Okay, so what are you asking for tonight? Do we need to move on this?
Do you need a vote?
No.
You can't vote yet.
No vote.
No, we've got to do the
We have to
trailer.
This is
Public
more,
hearing.
I guess this is just more informational,
Okay.
to try and, so you have any questions to answer, here's what we're looking, our ask is that you would go through this process with us, hold the public hearing, 3 public hearings, maybe you can explain how that works, and then after the public hearings, have a vote.
What's your timeline for the hearings?
Well, we have to have a couple weeks for the newspaper notice, so like June would be great. If you go into towards the middle of July, I don't know what your schedule looks
You have the
like.
same typical kind of requirement, which is notice it X days, then hold the first hearing, then X days before the second.
But our public hearings are consecutive. They're 3 different items right in a row, same night.
Oh.
Same night, right in a row.
Wow.
So it sounds like one public hearing. We just open and close so that so the first public
Okay.
hearing is to talk about the project. So Scott would say that, talking about rehabbing the units. And then the second public hearing would be on the anti-displacement relocation assistance plan. So then we say that no intent for any displacement is going to occur. It's going to be a day renovation and they can use the community room. But if anything, like, God forbid, the plumbing go haywire and you can't move them back in, we will have a plan for what to do with them.
And you share that plan at the hearing?
Yeah, and it may be one unit stays open for, if it vacates ahead of time, they may keep it open just for that kind of thing. Or if they end up having to go to a hotel, they have to pay all the costs. That's how it goes. The people don't have to pay anything. And then the last one is on the Housing Community Development Plan. So to ask for CDBG, you have to have a Housing Community Development Plan. And the last one you had was in 16 or
Yeah,
17?
we have to,
I sent it to you recently. So, and that's just, it has some nice goals in it. And you have to be addressing a goal, which is safe, sanitary, affordable housing, decent housing. So if you see when I proposed the plan, the newest plan, the Housing Community Development Plan, it just took your old goals and threw it into the new one. Only there's a new format that now talks about citizen participation. That's been added by the CDBG, which basically says you have to have these public hearings. Things we've always done, but now they're written into the plan. So it's basically, I just took your old plan and put it into the proposed new one. So you can have time to look it over and you can see if you want to make any changes. Generally, a pretty nice goals, there's really no changes needed to them, but you can do what you want with it. And so we would have, say we pick the public hearing for whatever, mid-June, end of June, then we just do consecutive, go through the public hearings, ask for public comment, and then after that you make the motions. Whether to apply for the funding or not, to adopt the anti-displacement and to adopt the housing and community development.
Are all those units on some spectrum of affordability? Are there any market
No,
value?
they're all considered 30% AMI.
Okay.
What's the impact of the project if the grant or the request doesn't go through from the town? It's not approved.
Well, that would be my job to go back and try and figure out what Plan B would be.
The ask
This
is
is-
500,000.
Yeah, this is part of Plan A.
Okay.
This is trying, so these are Section 8 units, I don't know if you knew that.
Right.
So there's a HAP contract through HUD that's associated with those units. So the residents pay 30% of their income. And the rest of the rent is made up by the HAP contract. But the rents are fairly low for this area. So there's not a lot of income for a nonprofit like us to be able to put money back into it, which hence is why we're asking for this money, so that we could do this.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
So, public hearings, is that something that we could just start our meeting an hour early?
Oh.
Or
it
is
would
it?
About
probably
15
take-
minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, they're quick.
Yeah, well, if we're doing something that people aren't very opposed to,
Yeah.
fixing up a place,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Okay.
a nice thing, right? If we were doing something that there was probably some comments that weren't, for it, then we might need more time. But this is pretty,
Yeah.
it's just a kind of nice project, right?
So we could schedule it during,
Yes,
for one
for
of
sure.
one of our regular
Yeah,
meetings.
for sure. You don't want to get together separately.
Yeah.
So probably June 24th.
10th or the 24th, yeah.
Yeah. June 24th would be, I think, depending on the noticing, I don't know if it's 2 weeks. Do we need to notice it for 2 weeks?
It's 2 weeks, but we have plenty of time. I can send you over a draft notice.
Okay.
And then you can, and I would send it to, it has to go into a statewide paper, so it'd have to hit the Union Leader, and then, I don't know if you do the Daily Sun as well, I assume.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I just don't, our board meets every 2 weeks, so, so unless you guys want to schedule it for the week of the 16th through the 20th, I think we have to do the 24th.
Yeah, 24th is fine.
That would give us a little time to get our act together
Sure.
and find some numbers and stuff, right? Scott? 24th sounds great, thank you.
All right.
All right, I'm in on that.
And again, you guys meet at 6, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all. Any more
Thank you.
questions? You can just email any questions you have. I'd send you stuff about how this isn't supposed to cost the town any money, there's budgets built in. We've done this in Tamworth before, but I don't think any of you were on the board before. So I've been here a few times with the town and gone through it. So the liability is pretty minimal. There'll be a lien put on the property if anything goes haywire, which I've been doing 40 years, we haven't had anything go haywire, but it's always a first. I suppose there's a lien on that property, and any recoup has to come from that. It would never come from the taxpayer dollars. That's always the number one question. And the other one is how much money is it going to cost the town? And so we build a budget in there so that the legal cost of reviewing the contracts, any potential single audit, all that is covered. Okay? So, and that was in an email I sent out, just so, because those are the questions,
That
that
come up,
generally
yeah.
we hear. Yeah,
Yeah.
so. Sound good?
Yeah, thank
So
you.
if you
good,
come
thank
up
you.
with more, just send an email along.
Okay,
Okay.
Glad to have you rehabbing those units.
yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Knock on wood for
You're
it.
welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Be in touch. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to library rooftop solar and exterior painting bids.
Yeah, we've got 2 bids in, Mary, at the last minute, so. They haven't been open, there's one, let me know if you need scissors, Carl, or if you can just tear into that one.
Can you open that one?
I think I can. I may need help. Okay, we have one from On Demand Painting, Tim Glue. Whoa. Let's see if I can get to the bottom line. Do you see the bottom line?
Is it the top?
The top line?
No.
Oh, I didn't turn the page over.
19,785 0.38.
And we have one from Cobalt Construction. Oh, actually,
It's
Ex-
on demand's just for the painting,
yeah.
yeah.
And
Oh, 2 copies, that's right.
Mary, is there lead paint?
Yeah.
figure if you're building in town.
Yeah.
Well,
So these are just bids for painting?
Painting.
Solar is separate?
We haven't got
right.
It
it.
says,
Okay.
Nope, this is just painting, I'm sorry.
oh,
No,
Okay.
the only 2 we have are for painting.
okay, that,
So Cobalt submitted 2 for painting?
Just 2 copies.
so there were no rooftop installation bids that came in on time?
No, but that was, we decided to request, to invite, to submit a quote, and so I think we'll talk about solar after we do.
Oh, I'm just trying to read this sentence, it sounds like you had the bids for solar and painting
This
due
one.
today,
Oh, we do.
the way you wrote it.
Yeah, we're just doing painting first.
So
Gotcha.
Cobalt's number is $20,890.
Wow, close.
Very close.
20,890?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember, was lead certification
Yes.
part of it, and they both are?
That's what was my question, are they both lead certified?
But, yeah, well, I mean, I think they were foolish to bid if they weren't.
But yeah, it was part of the requirement.
It was.
It was part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Do they have to show proof of that in the bid documents?
They should, I believe Tim,
I know
Tim
Tim
did.
is.
Tim did, let's see if.
Tim is from,
Tim McGlow, who's the
Uh,
maintenance guy
What was the
here.
name of his?
On
Okay,
demand.
yes, painting.
On Demand. Hope he does my house before he gets to this.
I think I must be after your house.
Oh, I don't know, I haven't even got an estimate from him yet. Project requirements. That was our list. Terms.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't either.
We should get that from them.
Yeah.
from Cobalt.
Yeah. Lead certification from them.
Oh, that's not it.
Yeah, it's not, there's on demand.
Mary, were you hoping the board would award the bids tonight? Or would you like time to review the bids and discuss it?
I think where painting is sort of time sensitive, because the summer is short, it would be good to move on this if you feel that we're just getting started with the new board members, and our Buildings and Grounds Committee hasn't even met yet. So, would we have anyone, I'd be happy to look at them. I do know that there's lead, and it's a historical building. And those two things together mean that the building needs to be treated in a very particular way, which was the reason for the very detailed RFP.
Yep.
So,
Oh, that's the
and
data
a
is certified.
certification is required
Oh,
for that
certification of
lead
completion.
paint.
Of his lead cert.
Their website does have a whole chapter on
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
historic preservation, but I'm not seeing any citation about there.
So I did get a certificate from one of the contractors
From,
from On Demand.
Yeah, and we have that in the bid as well. It's not in Cobalt's, but I assume it's, let's just assume it's there, we can confirm that.
But we don't see a timetable in either one of them.
I think it might make sense for you to reach out to them and ask about availability before, because the price is so close, the price is not that relevant.
The
Right.
prices are more than the warrant article, so that's.
That was my next question, what
It was
was
17 we had in the warrant article?
17, and it was between 17 and 18, I don't remember the exact number. Yeah,
Does the library have some funding they can tap into to make up the difference?
No.
It was worth asking.
we do not. It would be,
Yeah.
yeah, we'd have to
Um,
find it.
And are you confident that once you, having just lived this nightmare, that once you start getting into building prep for the painting, that you're not gonna find some unanticipated
Oh,
rot or damage that has to be repaired too?
Actually, I don't think it's that bad. You realize it's only the front of the building that's wood. It's 3 back sides are vinyl.
So this is 20 grand to do just the
Yes,
front of the building?
yeah, it's because of the lead,
Oh, is
Yeah.
that it?
yeah.
So they're not touching anything other than the front?
Wow.
And, well, there's cornices, there's doors,
Right.
there's
Okay.
odds and ends around the rest of the
and
building.
there's shingled, it's shingled, you know, so that's,
Slower?
Slower prep, yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've asked them to fix some along the foundation, so like a stucco coat that's been
Mhm.
peeling off for years because people with weed whackers just
Oh,
whack it
yeah.
off.
Yeah.
You know, it just peels off when they hit it with it. So, but that could use some fixing as well. So there's odds and ends.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty much
Articulated that.
articulated in the grant.
I'm not
Okay.
sure if Cobalt put this in their bid documents, but they did, when they emailed me, they said that they are the construction project manager and volunteer in paid fashion for the Effingham Public Library, which is a historic town hall project. It included the full coordination of repair and repaint to the Secretary of the Interior standards for the rehabilitation. So I think Cobalt has
Yeah.
been doing some.
Okay.
And I remember when I was checking their references, I interacted with them.
Okay.
I don't know if it was an email or a phone call, but
Yeah,
I'm sure they're very qualified.
I did get references, one was called in and one was sent as a letter for on demand. I got someone who, sort of a state rep, who is on the board for the South Eaton Meeting House, which is another historical property. He recommended, made a recommendation as to the work was.
Yeah. On Demand just did South Tamworth Union Hall too,
Yeah.
and that involved lead.
I think he's doing Gilman Tavern.
Oh, yeah.
And they did the bakery last year or the year before. I mean, they're both
Yeah.
qualified.
Yeah.
And while the prices are close, On Demand is $1,000 less.
Yeah.
And I think since we're short, and they're equally qualified, we would be generally compelled to pick the lower price.
I agree.
But we still don't know when either one
Yeah.
could start and finish.
The warrant article is written in such a way that if it didn't happen this year, the time period could happen next year.
'Cause it was
Through
December
2026,
26th, right?
Yes, yes, because we ran into that before with the building, it was really last
Oh,
September.
the walkway.
End of September, oh my word.
So we would probably have to tap into one of our repair expendable trust funds, I would assume, to
Yeah.
make up the difference? I don't know where else it
Yeah, I
would
think
come.
so.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Which difference?
Between what was in the warrant article and what the low bid is.
Oh,
Both
yeah.
the bids are above the warrant article
They both exceed the warrant article.
by a
Right.
couple
By a
thousand
couple
dollars.
$1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we could use, yeah, the expendable trust fund.
Yeah.
that would be most welcome.
I make motion to give the contract for the exterior painting on the library to On Demand for the price of $19,785 to complete the bid is outlined in the documents.
38 cents.
Oh, 38 cents.
Second.
I rounded down.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Motion passes.
How does accessing the expendable trust work?
We haven't done that before,
Haven't had to.
so we'll have to figure that
Figure
out.
that out, because we're gonna have to do that, so.
I write a request that's basically approved by you guys to the trustees of the trust fund.
Okay.
We spend it and then we reimburse ourselves from the expendable trust. So it would be expended from, I'd have to look in our
So the
budget.
library budget would go over, and then we would reimburse it from the expendable trust.
So maybe at our next meeting, we'll make a motion for that, because
But-
we'll need to know the exact amount.
The warrant article is the select board are the agents to expend, because it's a CIP project.
But the expendable trust fund is a little different.
Right, right. But would the library pay the difference, or would the town pay the difference and they get reimbursed? That's
Well,
what
eventually-
You would pay it, you'd go over budget, and we would reimburse you, so you wouldn't go over budget.
Yeah, but the town's paying the rest of the bill.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so I'll have to check our budget and see which line I would expend it to.
Yeah. Either way,
It would
it's not
be-
gonna hurt your budget.
Right,
It would
no, I
be-
understand.
Yeah, around the $2,000,
Yeah,
the difference.
sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. At rooftop, we have no new news. It was good news last time.
Now, are the bids coming in
Oh,
for the
yeah.
solar? I forget where
Yeah,
we're
so I'm
at.
sorry, okay, the solar, we got approval from the board for you to seek quotes from the two contractors. Did they
Yes.
submit those?
I haven't seen any, they were supposed to send them to you, so neither one has sent anything?
No, I've got
Okay, I
none.
heard from, so Barrington Power, which has a new name now, it's not Barrington Power, but it's the same company with a new name. They were interested in submitting one, as was Mains Electric, so I'll reach out to both and just ask to get it
Okay.
ASAP.
Yeah.
Are those bids due today, too?
Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
They're busy.
Yeah. Okay.
They still think it's Monday.
And if we had a deadline and they missed it, then you put out a new request to bid.
I could.
Yeah, we have to start over. But it could be request to bid and have it come in next week or 2 weeks from now.
But we're just requesting quotes on the solar.
Yeah.
Oh, so they weren't sealed bids?
Correct.
No,
Okay.
right. Yeah.
Then you can do it any way you want to do it. Yeah, the phone call will work.
All right, I will do that.
Yeah, but if neither of them are going to
We need to know.
quote, we need
Yeah.
to know so that we can put it to bid.
Right.
Yeah, the whole point of skipping the bid process was so that we could award it to them faster and get it done quicker, but,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
so we'll see what they say. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Thank you, thank you.
We'll go on to code compliance. I should announce that our code compliance officer for the groundwater protection ordinance, Ed McCone, has resigned from this position. And so now we need to either designate or find a new compliance officer.
And I'm gonna bring up something.
Okay.
So we have been talking about this in different ways on and off for 3 years. We started years ago with looking at junkyards. We've talked about the best way to handle the health officer position, which of course is a little bit different, but it's all the same idea of compliance. We've talked about the fact that we have a requested building notification form that nobody, even contractors, completes, and that ends up in people constructing on properties that we don't collect taxes for, sometimes for years, until they fall into cycle for the assessor to visit the property. We have, the select board is responsible for enforcement on subdivision regulations, And again, if we don't know what people are building on their properties and they choose not to go through the appropriate process of applying for a subdivision and construct instead, we have several properties, at least in town, that really should, they're non-compliant, they really should have gone through the subdivision process. Nobody likes to talk about land use regulation until it's somebody doing something right next door to their house. So we get calls about something going in next door, and we don't have an enforcement mechanism. So I'm gonna suggest, I'm gonna volunteer to do this before the next meeting, that we do a little research about what our options are for creating a position that enforces no new regulations, no new ordinances. We're not talking about building code, we're not talking about fire code, we're talking about just the ordinances and regulations we have, and see what that position might look like. See what it might cost the town, see what it might gain the town in revenue that we're currently losing, see what it might gain the town in potential hazards that we're gonna have to mitigate after the fact. Because right now, the select board, planning board is responsible for enforcement just of the earth excavation. Select board's responsible for enforcing subdivision regulation violations, floodplain violations, groundwater protection violations, junkyard, health code violations, current use violations, our noise and racetrack ordinances, which are kind of the same thing. Cell tower, which is sort of moot because it'd be hard for somebody to sneak a cell tower up, but it might happen. And scenic roads. Some of those obviously are not big hits, but the ones that are, we've had a bunch of calls in the past 3 or 4 months about concerns about crops of RVs turning up on single properties. Technically, if you put a bunch of RVs on one property and you are supposed to go before the planning board under the subdivision regulation. And once you start sharing property ownership, that gets really murky, and that's also a subdivision thing. So we can decide that we just want to let people do whatever they want, and if somebody calls to complain because it's happening next door, we say, we're sorry, we don't have enforcement in this town, or we can actually enforce the regulations we have.
Yeah, well, I think we definitely need to enforce the regulations we have, that's pretty clear to me.
So you're willing to look into what it would entail to get an enforcement officer?
Yeah.
And then not just an officer, but a way to actually have leverage to enforce it.
Yeah, so there are different RSAs that govern enforcement, and so what we'd have to look at is this is where we'd have to talk to legal, because a lot of the language in the RSAs entwines both code enforcement with land use enforcement, and we're really not talking about code enforcement here. We're only talking about land use regulations, because that's what we have. So we'd have to figure out what the language would look like to make that a clear separation, even if the RSA combines them. And, be interesting to see if any other towns are in our similar
I was going to say, is
situation.
there precedence from any other?
Don't know. Yeah.
Most of them would, if they combine it all, it's the building inspector takes the lead, what I've seen.
Yeah.
But there are at least 3 RSAs. There's junkyards is one, land use is another, health is a third, and then I guess the state building code would be the 4th. So it adds up fast.
Yep. So even without looking at building code, which people in Tamworth are responsible for meeting, we just don't have the enforcement. The state's supposed to act as the enforcement agent. There are steps that you can go through for enforcement that are everything from warnings to fines to litigation, But, it's tricky when every single real estate ad you see for any property or home in Tamworth, like the first thing they say in bold print is no zoning in Tamworth. So you can't blame people for coming in thinking that they can do what they want. But I think that that's negligent on our part for not finding a way to inform people when they do purchase a property or move to town, or if they've lived here for 50 years and they're deciding to do something different. Just remind people what we do have for ordinances and regulations, which are all on the website.
Right. Yeah, do we have any kind of new Tamworth resident packet that goes out?
Well, that's a thing we've talked about.
Yeah, that's kind of part of this discussion,
Yeah.
is, you know, what do you, be nice to have a nice little packet that says, this is,
Here's your library card and here's your land use regulations. Yeah, that's a good,
because there's just
Big
general,
step.
I mean, from, you know, do you issue permits to how do I get my address assigned to, like, it's just, there's lots of questions that our office gets, so
Sure.
to be able to hand somebody a packet.
I'll add that to the list. Anyway, that's my suggestion.
Yeah.
So, if anything comes up right now, I know that we have a application coming in for the building in the floodplain, you said? That
Yep,
we'll have to look at? I mean, we would have had to look at that anyway, because that would not have been under Ed's purview, but,
yeah, so this is actually, since working here, this is my first time. On the building notification form, it says right on there, is it in a floodplain? And somebody called me saying, yeah, we're actually, you know, we're replacing our house, we're taking it down, we're putting up a manufactured housing unit on our yard, but we realize now we're in a floodplain. It's FEMA recently. Anyway,
Yeah, they change the lines now and then.
yeah, so, the prompted me to be like, oh, we do have a floodplain ordinance, and it means they have to fill out an additional permit application, which you folks are responsible for enforcing. So, it's just like, who goes out there and does it?
And what does that even look like? Just, yes, it's a floodplain and probably shouldn't build
You
here,
have
but
to, you have
if
to
you
have a
want to?
certain type of foundation.
Okay, so
Yeah,
actually
there's-
inspecting
Yeah.
what was built. Interesting.
And there's a phrase in law for substantial improvement. You can rebuild and fix things, but if it's a substantial improvement, and that's defined in the law, and I can't remember what the definition is, then it can trigger, it can stop that. Whereas you have more opportunity to fix what you have than to make it,
Sure.
40% bigger.
Right.
and I would bet with the floodplain, because of floodplain insurance being what it is, that you probably do jump through the hoops, there's an
Yeah.
incentive. That's my guess, but. So, that's my recommendation, that's my offer.
Okay.
Do you want to report back on the 10th or the 24th of June?
I'll do it on the 10th.
Okay, we'll move to old business. Tamworth Village Committee, parking lines, it says. So, I have 4 people who have agreed to be on this committee, as well as myself. So we need to, what's the word?
Vote to appoint them.
Appoint. I couldn't come up with a point. We need to vote to appoint them to this committee. The names are Sienna Kaplan Thompson, Kate Thompson, Amy Carter, and what's Elsa's last name?
Weintraub.
Weintraub, Elsa Weintraub. So far, those 4. I make a motion to appoint all 4 to the Tamworth Village Traffic Study Committee.
Second.
And that's an indefinite appointment. Because you're
Yes.
doing it until the project is,
Yeah,
yeah.
With the expectation of reporting back to the board.
yes. So we will, I guess, as a regular committee, we will have to meet on a regular basis.
You don't have to, you just have to post the meetings when you have them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think we'll need a monthly meeting necessarily for this project. So we'll meet as needed and, post the notices, take minutes, and report to the select board with recommendations.
Now, do you want more members, or do you need more, or you're fine with the number you have?
I think more would be good. I have a couple more people. So when it was an informal discussion, there were probably at least 8 or 10 people who came to talk about it. And there are more members of that group that I could ask to be. They're generally either business owners or residents of the main street in the village.
Makes sense.
So they have skin in the game.
And I don't recall, was it posted on the website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to leave that posted
I guess so, yeah.
for a
Yeah.
couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, anybody's welcome, certainly. They don't have to be a Main Street resident.
Wonder if Jim Bowles will have any ideas.
Well, I've gotten a few things accomplished. I asked our road agent the width of the right-of-way, because we're concerned about that, as far as a walkway in front of the porch at the Lyceum. We're like, well, is that private property, or is that... It turns out the right-of-way through the village is 3 rods. Rod being 16.5 feet. So it's like 49.5 feet.
So it's across their front porch.
So it's from the front porch to the curb on this side,
Yeah.
where everybody's parked. Yeah, it's the whole paved area, for sure. So we do have the authority to work right up to their porch. I had our police chief, who has this new, he's reported on, it's electronic gizmo that he can hitch to a utility pole, and it monitors traffic speed and count, and traffic count as well.
Cool.
He has just mounted that on a pole on the other side of the bridge.
Great.
So we'll start gathering data on traffic count and average speed.
Does it take a picture of my license plate as I speak?
No, that's my camera. Yeah, so that, and earlier when I had Richard Roberts over here talking about the stripes for diagonal parking, he was fine with it. So we'll see what the committee comes up with and get back to you about that.
And just keep checking in with Glenn Trefethen
Okay,
at LRPC, because he gets all the updated grant opportunities, and LRPC's keeping track of all the federal grants, DOT
yeah,
especially, as everything's changing in the budget cycle in Washington.
yeah,
So, the grants favor like a comprehensive view.
right.
And
So another thing that's happening, I believe, we're having a presentation in early June.
July 8th, yeah,
Oh, July.
July.
Okay, July 8th, from
my dad's birthday.
Jim Lambert
Mm.
about four-way stops, the possibility of four-way stops at this intersection with 113A.
Oh, at our meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's at our meeting. And he also suggested Page Hill Road at the other end
Oh,
as a possible four-way stop.
yeah.
Um,
At the other end.
At the other end,
Yeah.
as you come down the hill. So neither one is an ideal location for a four-way stop, but we'll see what he has to say. Okay, that's all I've got.
Great.
And we'll go to Brownfield study.
Okay, brownfields, so I haven't gotten the report back yet, but it's gonna come really soon. I met on the day, the 14th, with the engineer, Tim from Novus Engineering, who's been in charge of the brownfields project at the Tamworth Road property, with Shanna Saunders, who's the executive director for LRPC, and with Glenn Trefethen, who is, why was he there? 'Cause he's a transportation guy, but anyway, he was there. And so at one of our last meetings, we talked about going into the next step of the brownfields work, which is free to us. this is all covered by the Brownfields grant that LRPC has. And it is the kind of community input phase of looking at the land. And so we knew that this was gonna come, we knew that this was a service that they offered. And when I went into this conversation, I was picturing it that we would convene some community conversations to talk about what do we in Tamworth feel like the best use for that property is. Yes, that is one conversation that they can help us with. But interestingly, they said they can do follow-up community conversations based on what that conversation yields. So for instance, if we thought that we were going to someday build a fire station on that property because this fire station is substandard, and that's what the community conversation yielded, they could also work with us to decide what's the best use for the town of the existing fire department property, and to evaluate that. And deciding the best use is way more comprehensive than I thought. So they can actually work with concepts that the town comes up with and come up with a P&L for it, the return on investment numbers for it. They can come up with architectural engineering renderings. You know, rough, this is not like...
All through the grant.
All through the grant, no cost to us. They can factor in any elements that we want to see, like what would the cost be to add solar to the site or whatever else. They can help us with feasibility studies. And whatever, like we can have all these conversations free of charge, overseen by them, and there's no compulsion to act. Like just because we have the conversations, even if we say, great place for a fire station, we don't have to build a fire station for 40 years if we don't want to. There's no time pressure. If, though, we do come up with some idea, if there is contamination on the land, and it's kind of looking like there's not going to be much of anything, but if there were, and we wanted to get a cleanup grant, this fall is the last period where the cleanup grants are at 100%. So if we got a cleanup grant, there would be no cost to the town to clean it up. After this year, the next round, which is next November, it's an 80-20 split, and that's a more typical thing. This year is like the last year of X period at that 100%. So,
Has the testing been started?
yeah, the testing is done.
Oh, it is?
They're doing the analysis right now. Sorry, I thought I said this at the last meeting.
You
So
probably
they did the soil testing first, and based on just the visuals of the soil, and these are like dirt geeks, right? So they're looking at it, and like if you back up a little bit, you'll remember that they looked at the property, they did a walk around. That was phase one. Part of phase one, and they identified certain areas on the land where they're like, there's probably something here. Oh, this is where you buried all the burned building. Oh, this is the dipping shed. Oh, this is whatever. So that's where they had the series of soil samples taken from, I can't remember, 8 or so sites. They said that they didn't think there was much going to come back based on what they saw. But then the next thing that they did was put in test wells, which are like pipes bored into the ground, and they came back a few weeks later and took water samples from those, and I have not yet heard about that. So we're waiting to hear. We'll get a complete report, and then that gets as soon as the report's completed, it gets sent. I can't remember. We went through this last time. The draft gets sent to DES. Then they approve it, and it comes back to us as a final report, and it's, I think once DES gets the grant, it's on the website. I mean, gets the draft, it's on the website. So it should be posted really soon. Anyway, we need to act really quickly if we want to have these community conversations, if we want to start planning for like cleanup and project grants.
To get it 100%.
So, I mean, it's not gonna hurt to have the conversations now. We aren't compelled to act.
Is there a certain number of hearings that we would have to?
No, and they're not even, these are not like statutory hearings, these
Oh.
are just like public conversations.
Oh.
So we could have as few as one, we could have as many as we wanted.
Yeah.
What would probably happen is that Shanna will maybe zoom into a meeting and talk to us about how we want to handle it, and then they'll come up with a schedule, a scenario. So what I'd like to suggest is that I talk to her and say, yeah, we want to take this next step and hear what the public thinks about the land, and she'll also do a much more articulate job of sharing with the public all the spectrum of possibility. But we should work on this soon because she's about to get into busy summer season too. So, and if there are no objections, I'd like to see if we can get her
Yeah. Do it.
get her to meet with us soon.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Emily, time for the administrator report.
Okay, oh, Carl, do you have the account balance number?
Yeah, the account balance is $1,622,283.
Thank you, didn't have it on mine. We've just been busy. Elaine's last day is on Thursday, so I have a card in the signature file if you folks would like to sign it. And just to follow up from last week, Bruno, I know you had asked about the ambulance contract. So I did just some research, and it looks like from 2023 to 2024, for example, we had 555 calls. So half of those were transports, half of them were not. But if I ran that number through the cost of the contract, which is $229,000, it ended up being like an average of $400 and something per incident. And then they spoke with,
Just for them to show up.
just for them, right, that's the average cost per
Yeah.
call. And when you think about, some of those transports are thousands of dollars depending on what type of life-saving, things they have to do. But also just the red tape of the cost of the vehicles, the certifications for the staff to be on call 24/7. It started to make me feel like, okay, this price of this contract isn't as outrageous as I thought it was.
I'm just concerned for the townspeople,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that some of them are hurting.
agreed. And it sounds like this is something that the ambulance, because where you're hitting a wall is the insurance company. So
Of
like,
course.
because the ambulance company bills the insurance, and the insurance gets to say, we don't want to cover that, and that gets footed back to the resident. And I know that the gentleman I spoke with at Action Ambulance seems to, I know Ed spoke to this too, but like to work with residents, and there's sometimes there's forgiveness involved, sometimes it's a payment plan, they'll work with residents, but I know I said it last time, but I plan on going to that contract meeting again in the fall and
Thank you.
just keep
Yeah.
working on it.
Just something I think that we should be thinking about.
Oh, sure.
And see what the dollar figure is, so.
Yeah,
I did pass that on,
yeah,
to have them call action, so.
yeah.
I don't know how they made out, I haven't seen them since.
Yeah, and the more I learned about it, because originally I was like, well, Tamworth has a rescue vehicle, we have an ambulance, like let's just service our own residents. Let's take that money and pour it into our own department. But then when I realized the cost of having that certified staff 24/7 available, and one vehicle just wouldn't be enough. 555 calls, like I just don't know. I don't think it'd be doable. So that contract is really like you said, Leanne, like an insurance that we
Someone's
have
gonna show
3
up.
ambulances
Yeah.
showing up. But it's
Thank you.
expensive and it's crazy. I also follow up for Ed's request. I did have 3 residents reach out requesting that the board consider moving meeting dates back to Thursday for government oversight to be able to be here consistently. So I just wanted to give that update. I know Emery had asked for public input, so there were 3. Anything else? I think that's it for my report.
Okay, time for the select board update. What have you got, Richard?
For the Energy Committee, they had their second annual EV and Classic Car Expo on May 18th at Tamworth Motorsports or Club Motorsports in Tamworth. And they had about 90 plus cars.
Wow.
Those are people bringing cars to show and just people coming to participate as, residents. So somewhere shy of maybe 200 people. So it's more than last year. It looked like there were maybe more EVs and less classic cars this year. They had a number of dealers there that had brought cars that people could then, get in and be driven around on the track. And just to be clear, people aren't racing around the track with the dealer vehicles or anybody else's. It's a Sunday morning, so technically the track is closed. So they have a pace car, and you go at a much slower speed than would create noise. So that's how the event was always envisioned, and that's why it's only on Sunday morning, because their regular members can't use it on Sunday mornings, and they can't rent it out to people who want to drive loud cars on Sunday mornings. But it was a big success. It was a little less effort than last time because it's the second time instead of the first time. I think the first time around was a lot of effort for the volunteers. The Club Motorsports does support the event with considerable paid staff. I do want to mention that because everywhere we go there's a staff person there, and they're very helpful and very organized, and the event wouldn't work without that. So it was a big success, I think. I think the Energy Committee is going to get together. They meet every month and decide, do they want to have the same event next year, or would they have a different event? But, that's up to them to decide what they want to do, but it seemed to be very successful. The Energy Committee is also working on this program called Sol Smart, S-O-L, Smart. It's supported by the U.S. Department of Energy that works with local communities that want to be able to tell solar developers or homeowners who maybe consider solar on the roof or in their backyard, what do they need to do to make that happen. So the way the Energy Committee goes through training through this program, and they develop really just a fact sheet that would be available at this building, that somebody says, hey, can I build a solar field in my backyard? You can hand them this piece of paper and say, here's the restrictions, here's the requirements, etc. Which seems a little crazy since there's so few restrictions on anything in Tamworth. It's not like it's going to be a lot of, here's what you can't do kind of stuff. So in that respect, just like any other kind of development, Tamworth has so few restrictions that it's really open to whatever people bring to the table, good or bad. But at least that way, the town would get itself in the database in the SolSmart program, and when people are looking around in New Hampshire, would I like to put my solar farm there, this would pop up, and those individuals or companies could find out what are the possibilities. So that's the Energy Committee. Transfer station, as we heard earlier, the bathroom is underway. I haven't been there since Friday, maybe. I can't remember if I went there over the weekend, just since Friday. The building was framed, so I'm sure they've gone further since then. The water line is in. I don't think Hartley's been there to connect it when I was last there, but the trench has been dug, the water line's in, it's been backfilled. Cobalt and HEB did investigate the existing slab. There is no foundation, so it would not be appropriate to put a building on it. We still have a decision ahead of us is if we're going to build a recycling building, where would it go? I've been communicating with Sanborn Head. They should have a proposed contract amendment to fund the design work for a building at our next meeting. And it probably makes sense to give them some direction, maybe even before that, as to should the building go on the slab or should it go where the brush pile is. I think it does make sense if we can make it work to put it where the brush pile is. I was leaning toward the slab, but because we have to make sure that people only make one stop. You can't make one stop for trash and then loop around and make another stop for recycling. That's just crazy. So I think laying out the building is key to make sure, if we put the building on the slab, there's 2 lanes coming in, trash stays to the right, recycling's on the left. And they snuggle up next to the slab. It's the opposite if you put a recycling building where the brush pile is. The right-hand lane would all be recycling, and trash only would be on the left. We just need to make sure if you pull into the recycling, can you make the turn back to do your trash? So that's the key: is can we lay out
Fit it in there, yeah.
fit it all in?
Right.
And maybe sometimes people will have to do a second loop, but we're doing everything we can to avoid that. So I hope to be able to, in a position to make a decision on giving direction to Sanborn Head at our next meeting, because they should have a proposed contract amendment by then. So that's all I got.
Do you have any word on when the septic's going in for the bathroom?
Nope. We've been waiting for an updated cost from GW Brooks because it's like a year-old estimate. The trees are removed. The highway department did that, so haven't heard from GW Brooks in a while.
I think, are we still waiting on the DES approval of the new septic design? I think it's...
There's 2 things in the way, right? The design has to be tweaked, showing the topo elevation that Sanborn Head did instead of the old topo. So there's 2 things. A revision of the design and an updated cost from GW Brooks. So it makes sense the design comes first before you know how to cost it. So
Yeah.
I'll ping both of them, both Mark McConkey and GW Brooks. There.
Okay.
Okay. I think all I've done is work on the Main Street Traffic Committee business, so I've already reported on that. That's all I've got.
Okay. I've been up to the transfer station a couple times working on some aftermath, little fiddly bits to clean up from the compactor install, and working with Brian on some, just different operations going on at the transfer station. One thing I did want to let the board know about is apparently there's been quite a large amount of refuse showing up in the noise of tires that no one paid for. They just kind of showed up and got snuck in apparently when no one was around to see it, as well as in the C&D. Brian estimated about half the C&D, last he talked to me about, actually had someone there. So we have people that are kind of driving by and just no one's looking, it seems like, and tossing something into the C&D. And the road agent had to bring by quite a large load of tires that apparently he had collected from around town. And so that's all stuff that's going into the dumpsters and not getting paid for. So maybe a conversation about cameras at some point would be beneficial.
Just to clarify, have people put tires in the tire pile as well as C&D?
That's my understanding. Was some stuff just got kind of tossed in the tire pile, without actually checking in with the attendant, and definitely into the C&D.
I think cameras make sense. It's not that expensive.
Right. So I'll do some looking into what we can put in there for a camera system, assuming that I'm big enough. That's good. Yeah. What I got.
Yesterday's Memorial Day ceremony was nicely pulled off. The scouts were great. They did Medal of Honor, New Hampshire Medal of Honor announcements and taps, led the pledge. I was getting confused. Silver Lake Singers? Wasn't the Silver Lake Singers?
What, can you?
Who are the singers?
Oh, Silver Lake.
Probably Silver Lake.
Oh, it was Silver Lake.
Yep.
They were there again. Fantastic. It was a nice turnout. So thanks to the Veterans Committee for pulling that off.
Well,
and
thank
Jeremy.
you. Thank you for your speech.
Sure. Jeremy, it was
Jeremy was
he
really good.
announced it. He did that.
Yeah.
He was the MC. That was great. So LRPC's meeting, commissioner meeting last Monday was in Wolfboro, and it was about, it's about this state initiative called Housing Champions. And it was originally, it originally came out as kind of a carrot and stick sort of initiative that the state wanted towns to subscribe to. And so you were supposed to get, like, the carrot part was that you were going to get, like, priority for different considerations for programs that you were engaged in or for grant funding or whatever. And those things have fallen by the wayside, and now it's just stick that's left. There are, out of all the towns, municipalities in the state, there's something like 11 or 16, that's it, that have met this housing champion criteria. And it's like an 80-point checklist, and it's meant to encourage municipalities to lighten up their land use regulations and their zoning to make it more more housing developer friendly. And ironically, I was probably one of the only towns represented in the room that we could have made 80 points, because 40 points, if you have no land use regulations that oppose housing, you get 40 points right out of the gate. So, but the stick part now is that if you are not designated a housing champion, things like these grants we've been talking about for, like, the sidewalks and pedestrian ways, they're going to be tied to being a housing champion. So that's one of the ways the state's pushing communities to make housing more accessible somehow. So I'm going to look into this and see what the application looks like so that Tamworth can be a housing champion with our no restrictions. And I'll let you know what that turns up. But if you see in the grants that you're looking at,
Housing, yeah.
that it says something about, you get like automatic 15 points out of 35 for being a housing champion, let me know.
That's what it's about, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And then lastly, last Wednesday, maybe it was the Wednesday right after our last meeting, the planning board had a work session about the master plan. And we talked about what it will look like to launch a master plan. And where we ended up is that at tomorrow night's planning board meeting, it's an agenda item to have David Little come in. He was one of the kind of core group pulling together the master plan process in the 2006 to 8 period. So he's going to talk to us about what he thinks worked really well and what he wishes they had done differently before we dive into process. So people should know that the master plan's coming up, and the planning board is trying to pull together a kind of a steering committee for the master plan, which would be a core group of people who handles kind of the development of the process. And we are really looking for a balance of viewpoints, political viewpoints, social viewpoints, all the viewpoints that make Tamworth Tamworth, so that this final document that gets created from this process actually does represent all of us as a town. So if people are interested in that, they can reach out to Anna Paddock, who is the new planning board chair, or come to tomorrow night's planning board meeting. I think the meeting starts at 5:30, and I think we go through our quick board roundup, and then it's going to be David Little. So the master plan stuff will be right at the beginning.
Leanne, can you say real quick, how does the master plan differ from like the build-out analysis?
Completely different.
Two totally different documents, right?
So the build-out analysis is a statistical document that uses national trends, state trends, county trends, and Tamworth's trends, along with looking at things like what land in Tamworth is restricted to development because it's wetland or shoreland or floodplain, or because it's under conservation, all those factors. And it says, what is Tamworth going to look like as it is right now if we don't have any other constraints on it in this period of time, in this period of time, in this period of time, so we can see how that, theoretically, how many people will be living in town. That's a build-out analysis. It's a data model. The master plan is a requirement of all towns in New Hampshire that you have a document that guides your land use planning. And we have a copy up on the, it's on the website, but we have a physical copy up there on the board. And it's, you have to have 2 chapters, and one is, I can't remember what the 2 required are because we had so many chapters. But the idea is that the idea that we as a town used last time in 2008 was that we wanted to get input from lots of people to create these chapters. So there was a chapter on recreation, on environmental conservation, on housing, on the economy, on school and education, whatever it was.
Okay.
And groups came together and talked about and did research on what does Tamworth have right now for this chapter, and where do we want to go and set some goals.
Okay.
So it's an aspirational document for how you want your community to grow.
Okay.
So if you don't have that, you just have whatever.
Yeah, what happens then?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
And I forgot to say in mine, just real quick, that I wanted to say thanks to Jeremy and Carrie Ann and the other rec department folks. I got to go to the track practice event in Moulton Borough the other day.
Oh, fun.
And the whole crew was loud and super high energy, coordinated. They were all standing on the fence line cheering on not only their own team members, but the other kids around. It was a really great event. So if you get a chance to go out to that, I highly recommend it.
Cool. We have some fast kids.
Yeah, we do.
I also went to the charrette across the road a couple of days ago, which was, well, I don't know how much use it was, but it was interesting to hear what the townspeople that showed up would like to see there. Of course, they wanted pretty much everything, and they wanted it to be reasonably priced.
What organization was that for?
Well, it wasn't.
It was the property owner.
It was a property owner.
New owner.
Oh, at the YC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess it was a big turnout, I
Well, it
guess.
was a big turnout, yeah.
What's big?
Well, I bet there are 50 people.
Oh, wow.
That
Yeah,
is
the
big.
place was
Yeah.
packed.
That's great.
I didn't know that
I
was.
talked to one person who left because it was too busy and too loud.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, hey, if you can get something busy and loud in this town, that's pretty good.
Well, but I mean, I don't know how much use it is because whoever actually leases the ground floor has to come up with a business plan, and if they have this huge stack of, here's what the townspeople want you to do,
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily jive with what's gonna work,
yeah.
or what you wanna do. So anyway, I think the plan is, the owner of the building would like to lease the ground floor to somebody to run a business. I think the second floor, the plan right now is to be a condominium for sale. And then the third floor can be developed into another apartment. I'm not sure if they have a solid plan for the third floor, but.
And fun fact, if you put a condo in your building, you need to get subdivision approval,
Yeah,
which the landowner knows and is in the process of doing. So, yay for the new owner.
so, anyway, that was that.
No, that's good. That's a good one.
All right. Is there any more public input? Hearing no public
Wait,
input.
Becky's got something.
Something in the chat. Hold on one second. Becky says, I would like to request that the board review the non-public minutes of April 22nd, session 3. There was a motion made but never seconded and no vote taken. This makes the motion null and void but involves an employee being allowed to take time. The board has approved these minutes, that is why their request to review. I'll have to check those meeting minutes, Becky. It's possible I just missed putting in the motion.
Yeah, because that conversation was.
Okay, then we'll move to the signature file. I make a motion to approve the select board meeting minutes for May 13th, 2025.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Just said abstain?
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Price, yes.
Make a motion to approve the application for raffle by the Arts Council of Tamworth, drawing date July 12th, 2025, and another application with a drawing date of June 14th, 2025.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Barry, yes?
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
I make a motion to approve institutional exemption applications for the 2025 tax year from the Tamworth History Center, map 202, lot 80, Tamworth Congregational Church, map 202, lot 78, Tamworth Preschool, map 206, lot 65, Sonata Housing, map 218, lot 12, Unitarian Universalist, map 202, lot 49, and Lakes Region Conservation, multiple parcels totaling 18 lots.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
I make a motion to approve PA 29 solar exemption for map 405 lot 10, an elderly exemption for map 215 lot 115, and a veteran's credit surviving spouse for map 404 lot 32.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Make a motion to approve an intent to cut from map 419 lot 1 access Hackett Hill Road.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
I make a motion to approve a timber yield tax levy for map 203 lot 27 for $1,594.69.
It's
That was the addition to the agenda.
Sorry, it's only on Carl's.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Just checking to see if I was paying attention, which
You were.
Okay, we have a long list of abatements.
I'd like to pull one out and you can go through the rest of the list. How about that?
Okay,
I'd like to pull out map 407 lot 113 for 974.
okay, do you want to discuss that now or at the,
I don't have a preference.
well, let's approve the group and then
Go back to that.
go back to that.
Yep.
Make a motion to approve abatements for map 202 lot 35, the amount of $2,001, map 410 lot 18 for $660.89, map 202 lot 7 for 1,700.
206.
What?
Map 206.
Map 206, thank you, lot 7 for $1,707.07. Map 211, lot 18, sublot 1 for $1,795. Map 407, lot 97 for $1,167. Map 407, lot 122 for $994. Map 216, lot 172 for $921. Map 411, lot 20 for $3,784. Map 209, lot 15 for $374. Map 402, lot 8 for $5,081 and issue a supplemental bill for $4,883. Map 402, lot 9 for $5,923 and issue a supplemental bill for $5,745. Map 407, lot 116 for $6,601 and issue a supplemental bill for $6,369. Map 402, lot 5 for $2,262 and issue a supplemental bill for $2,003.
second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
And now, we go to map 407, lot 113 for $974. Oh, do you want
I
to,
think you have to second it.
Are you
Do we
making a
vote
motion
down
on
a
it?
signature?
okay,
Or do we just pull it? What are
You
our
could just choose not to
Okay.
approve it, right? You can table this for the next.
Okay, so the reason is this property owner has come before us and asked for a conservation reduction.
oh, yeah,
And this abatement, the language in this abatement request is because her property is too developed. So I think that this property owner needs to meet with us and explain really what's going on with their property, because there are two requests that the town reduce her taxes for absolutely opposite reasons. So I don't think we should approve this yet until we,
Okay, I move to table the abatement application for map 407, lot 113 for $974.
I believe that where we, oh, yep, go ahead.
Do we have to second and vote on that, tabling it?
I would.
Go ahead.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Friends, yes.
Tabled.
And just an update, because I don't know if you folks, the last time we discussed the conservation restrictions, we had asked the property owners, I think there was 4 of them, or 5 of them, to submit basically their reasoning for a public benefit. So those letters went out already, and we gave June 10th as a deadline. So I think we can be expected to talk about that June 10th or June 24th at some time, when I get them back.
Could you do a follow-up letter with this property owner?
Sure.
Explaining why we tabled it, and that if she chooses to give us reasons why we should grant her conservation restriction, she needs to explain how these two contradictory requests actually work.
Yep.
Make a motion to approve the payroll in the amount of $59,936.02.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Friends, yes.
Make a motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $350,405.49.
Second.
Please.
I don't have the,
Sorry, I got
Breakdown.
this at the last minute. What was could you repeat the total one more
accounts
time?
payable, 350,000.
350, it's a school payment for 276,000,
Thank you.
which is the bulk of it.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Friends, yes.
Make a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91-A:3 to A.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Friends, yes.
We're now in non-public at 7:39 PM.
He wasn't here, so I'm taking it back. You all witnessed it.
Well, we get to bed, that's cool.
7:56.
I make a motion to come out of non-public at 7:56 PM.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Sorry, I couldn't sign my name.
Did you say yes?
Talk at the same time.
Barry, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Friends, yes.
We are now out of non-public, 7:57.
You're supposed to hit me before you say it.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Bam.
Oh, the minutes are not sealed. Ooh, should have said that before we adjourned.
Oops. Can I print off my laptop to the screen?
If you can
Maybe.
connect to it.
It's
I don't
it's-
think-
I don't see it on mine.
Do you want to send it to me and I can print it?
Well, it's your evaluation, you can just print me a paper copy.
Oh, yeah.
It's blank still. This is an HP?
You can try searching for the. front.
Yeah, I think
But
it's
are-
got some block
Are
on
you on
it.
the internal network on the Wi-Fi or on the
Public?
Then probably not.
Okay. Because this HP is probably the one in my house.
Good
that
night,
doesn't work.
Bruno.
See you later, guys.
Bye, Bruno.
I'll hit print and see what happens over there. Yeah.
Two.
So no Emery tonight.
He's
Missed all the
I
fun.
texted him at the beginning and he said he couldn't be here and said he texted you, but the meeting had already started. Can you imagine if your job was to be tax assessor? I would hate that job.
Did you pull out the one that we're not doing?
Oh,
Separate things.
question.
Look at 3.
Map 407, 113.
Oh man, it's not. Now my laptop's frozen.
manager.
Ooh, boy, this one's tricky.
Right.
So glad I shortened and spelled essay.
I used to have to handwrite kids' bathroom passes when I
Okay.
taught at Kingswood. And